Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Mukesh English. This is Mukesh Soni. Friends, in this video we shall have the discussion of the important questions from a very famous chapter, from a very famous lesson or the story titled My Teacher by written by a very famous writer Helen Keller. And this story is prescribed for the syllabus of first semester BCom and BBA, Bangalore University and Bangalore North University. In this video, we shall have the discussion of the 2 marks and the 5 marks questions from the examination point of view. So let's begin it without much delay. So now we shall have the discussion for the 2 marks questions, which according to the Helen Keller was the most important day of her life. The most important day for Helen Keller was 3rd March 1887. The reason behind it, Helen's teacher, Miss Sullivan, came to live with her on that particular day, and the day is here, 3rd March 1887. When did Helen Keller meet her teacher for the very first time? Helen Keller met her teacher for the first time on 3rd March 1887 when she was only 7 years old, and she met her for 3 months. How old was Helen Keller when she met her teacher for the first time? She was 7 years old. Now, what was the name of Helen Keller's teacher? Miss Sullivan. What made Helen Keller feel that something unusual was going to happen, and how did she react? Helen's fingers were almost unknowingly familiar with leaves and flowers. Anger and bitterness haunted her for weeks, and deep intoxication prevailed in this emotional fight. Question number 6. What does Helen compare her life with? She compares her life with a sea in a dense fog. Question number 7. What was the wordless cry of Helen's soul? The wordless cry of Helen's soul was, "Light, give me light." That was a wordless cry of Helen's soul. When Helen heard footsteps, she stretched out her hand, thinking it was her mother. What was the purpose of the arrival of the person who held Helen in her arms? The purpose was here to reveal everything and to love her. Question number 10. What did the teacher give her the day after she came? Who had sent it? The next day, the teacher gave her a toy or a doll. A doll was given to her, and it was sent by the little blind kids at the Perkins Institution. Who had dressed the doll? Laura Bridgman had dressed the doll. Why was Helen flushed with childish pleasure and pride? How does she express it? Helen achieved childish joy and pride when she was finally able to get the DOLL letters right. She grabbed it from her mother and revealed it. Question number 13. What was the uncomprehending way in which Helen learned to spell? She was simply making her fingers go in monkey-like imitation. The spelling DOLL applied to both. What did the teacher mean by both? Both the new doll and big rag doll are spelled in the same manner. Question number 15. Why did Helen dash the doll upon the floor? How did she feel about her action? She became impatient at her repeated attempts. So finally, she dashed the doll upon the floor. She felt delighted when she saw the fragments of broken doll. Question number 16. What was the well house covered with? The well house was covered with the fragrance of honeysuckle or honeycomb. When did the narrator feel repentance and sorrow? When she recalled breaking the doll, she felt repentance and sorrow. What were some of the first few words that Helen learned on the eventful day? She learned mother, father, sister, and teacher. These were the 2 marks questions from the lesson, My Teacher. Now we shall have a discussion of the 5 marks question. Very important questions, friends. Why does Helen refer to the day as an eventful day? or the eventful one. The most important day she remembers in her all her life is the one on which her teacher, Annie Mansfield Sullivan, came to her. She was filled with wonder when she considered the immeasurable contrast between the two lives which it connects. Question number two: how did the introduction of the word water awaken Helen Keller's soul? As Helen and the teacher go home to the well, they were fascinated by the honeycomb that covers it. Someone was drawing water, and her teacher put her hand under the spout. As a cold stream came up, on one hand, she said another word in the water, first slowly, then fast. Suddenly, Helen felt a fog consciousness as if she had forgotten something, the thrill of the thought coming back, and somehow the secret of the language was revealed to her. She knew that water, water, was a wonderful, cool thing flowing in a hand. The world of life awakens a soul, gives light, hope, joy, frees it. She left the well house eager to learn. Everything has a name, and each name gave birth to a new idea. When they returned home, every object she touched seemed to be shaking with life. This is how the introduction of the word water awakened Helen Keller's soul. Question number three: what transformation took place in the narrator after a visit to the well house? What did she do on entering the house? When the living world awakened her soul, it gave her light, hope, and joy. She left home eager to learn. Each object has a name, and each name gave birth to a new idea. She shuddered at life when she returned home to touch everything. She saw everything in a strange and new way. Question number four: what incident led the narrator to dash her new doll to the floor that resulted in its breaking into pieces? What were her feelings? Means to say, why she had thrown the doll and broke the doll? What is the feeling behind it? When Helen had a tussle over the words, when she was struggling with the word MUG, mug, WATER, water, Miss Sullivan had tried to impress it upon her that MUG is mug and that WATER is water. But Helen persisted in confounding the two. In despair, she had dropped the subject for the time and only to renew it at the first opportunity. She just threw it. She became impatient at her repeated attempts and seizing the new doll, she just seized the new doll, she dashed it upon the floor. She was keenly very much happy, delighted when she felt the fragments of the broken doll at her feet. All the parts of the doll, I mean to say, the whole doll was broken. She was so happy having seen this. Neither sorrow nor regret followed her passionate outburst. She had not loved the doll. In the still, dark world in which she lived, there was no strong sentiment or tenderness. She felt repentance and sorrow. Question number five: how was the summer of 1887 special for Helen? How did Helen learn the joy of nature? The summer of 1887 was very special for Helen. Helen's teacher, Miss Sullivan, trained her to spell out the names of the articles around onto her hand, and Helen would intimate her movements. She learned several words in the same process, even though she did not fully understand. Her teacher cleared her confusion by making her feel the flow of fluid on her hands. This made her realize that each word gave birth to a new thought. She felt repentant of what she had done and tried to put the fragments of the doll together. Later, she began to look forward for a new day for the first time in her life. Question number six. During the first few months after teacher's arrival, arrival, how did Helen got to know about many things around her, and how did she communicate with the others? As Miss Sullivan's initiative, Helen was initially amazed at her ability to pronounce the words like doll, DOLL, but these words meant nothing to her because it was an interesting finger play. It quickly annoyed Helen uttering the words, and she became angry. Miss Sullivan broke the toy she had brought for herself. Helen broke the toy. I'm sorry, there's an error here. Helen broke the doll, the toy she had brought for herself. She was satisfied that the source of her irritation had been removed. Sorry, Miss Sullivan broke the toy she had brought for herself. She was satisfied that the source of her irritation had been removed. Like most things, Helen went to the next thing when she went to the garden. Then Helen was able to combine the words like water, cup. It gave meaning to her existence. She remembered. She remembered her mother, father, teacher, and sister learning words from others, could not wait for the new day to begin. So she could continue to learn the word of life. Please correct here, it's not he, it is she. She remembered her mother, father, teacher, and sister learning words from others and could not wait for the new day to begin, so she could continue to learn the word of life. Question number 7. How did Helen's parents discover that their daughter had become deaf and blind? When Helen was 19 months old, she fell ill and suffered from brain fever. She stopped responding to sounds, sights, and simple actions. She did not blink when staring at the sunlight. She neither responded to her father's claps nor to the bright lamp that her mother brought in front of her. That is when her parents discovered that their daughter had become deaf and blind. What does Helen Keller mean when she says, "Light, give me light," was a wordless cry of my soul? The excerpt my teacher is taken from Helen Keller's autobiography, The Story of My Life, published in 1903. It's an inspiring story of a person who discovered the world through her fingertips with the help of a great and dedicated teacher. The most important day she remembers in her life is the one on which her teacher, Annie Mansfield Sullivan, came to her. She was filled with wonder when she considered the immeasurable contrast between the two lives which it connects. On the afternoon of that eventful day, she stood on the porch, wondering, expectant, and she guessed that something unusual was about to happen. And so she went to the door and waited on the steps. Her fingers lingered almost unconsciously on the familiar leaves and blossoms. Anger and bitterness had preyed upon her continually for weeks, and a deep languor had succeeded this passionate struggle. She did not know what future held of marvel or surprise for her. She was like the ship at sea in a dense fog when it seemed as if darkness shut her in, and she waited with beating heart for something to happen. Light, give me light, was a wordless cry of a soul, and the light of love shone. Last question. How did Annie Sullivan provide Helen with hope for a successful future and faith the world would recognize her and love her? Or, although the world is full of suffering, it's also full of the overcoming of it. Elaborate with reference to the life of Helen Keller. Helen Keller reveals many important incidents in her development during the first 20 years of her life. As told in her autobiography, The Story of My Life, she was far from the perfect child, purposefully upsetting those around her due to her frustration at her inability to communicate effectively. Her parents, dedicated, became deeply grieved and perplexed, anxious to find a way to help her as her outbursts become more frequent almost hourly. Miss Sullivan eventually arrived to teach Helen. Helen was poetic and compared herself to being lost at sea in a dense fog as she tried to explain her life before Miss Sullivan's arrival. The importance of the day would never leave her, and the light of love shone on me in that every hour. Due to Miss Sullivan's efforts, Helen was thrilled at first at her ability to spell the words such as DOLL, doll, but only because it was interesting finger play, and these words meant nothing more than that to her. It soon became an irritation for Helen spelling the words, and in one of her tantrums, irritation, she broke the doll which Miss Sullivan brought for her. She felt a smug satisfaction. She was very happy because the source of her irritation was removed. As with most things, Helen moved on to the next thing as they went out into the garden. Later, Helen was able to connect the words with water, mug. It gave her existence meaning. She remembered learning the words for mother, father, teacher, and sister, amongst others, and could not wait new day to start so she could continue learning the living word. So, friends, this is how I have solved the questions from the very famous chapter, My Teacher. And one more important thing which I have forgotten to mention here, I have done the videos of on all the topics of first semester BCom BB Generic English. If you just have a glance in the description box of this video, you will get all the lessons links. Or if you just go through the playlist, first BCom, first BCom BBA BUBNU, the playlist of my all the videos on my channel. You will get all the videos links. So friends, if you have liked this video, click on the like button, write in the comment box. If you have not yet subscribed my channel, please do subscribe. If you have any questions, any notes if you require, please do mail me on this email ID, mukeshenglish@gmail.com. Thank you so much. I wish you good luck for the forthcoming examination.